Hi, my name is Paul Tilstone from FESTIVE ROAD, the consultancy on a mission to create better travel and meetings management. Today, I'm in conversation with Scott Davies from the Institute of Travel Management. Scott.
Paul.
Thank you for joining us today.
What a pleasure.
How are you doing?
Doing really well, yeah. It's just the best to be back together again with everyone.
It's a nice
brilliant.
buzz, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, chuffed.
A little bit more buzzy than I'd expected, I think.
Yeah, it's like we've never been away in some ways. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Except plus ça change, but there are things that have changed as well.
For sure.
We'll get on to that. So we're thinking about 2022 and beyond. What's the travel manager got to think about either in their role or the travel program for the next few years ahead? What topic have you chosen?
I think the topic is one which was very high priority before, but a little bit nuanced, different now, which is sustainability, of course.
Okay.
Every travel buyer has sustainability at the very top of their agenda right now. And I think that 2 years is a long time in the travel business in any situation.
Yeah.
But I think the last 2 years, a lot has changed when it comes to sustainability.
Okay. Now, interestingly, when we asked everybody about their topics, sustainability was the most favourite topic. Yeah. We've restricted everybody, and you're the sustainability guy. So tell us what's changed? Why is it so different?
Thanks for putting me under huge pressure before asking the question by trying to make it good. I think what's happened, a few things have changed. Yeah. Obviously, nearly 2 years have passed. And so on the one level, demographics of the travellers have moved on by 2 years. That in itself is a pressure because, as we know, Gen Zs and millennials place sustainability even higher up the agenda than many of the likes of you and me, Paul.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The thing we're hearing very loudly from buyers is that boardroom focus has gone through the roof. So before the pandemic, it was important, it was a strategic priority, it was on the list. It is almost without exception number one priority for businesses now. And I think the third thing that's happened is that through necessity, through the pandemic, we have all had to embrace alternatives to travel.
Yes.
So I think those three dynamics together mean that this issue is getting a whole new level of attention.
Now, it doesn't surprise me, and I think you're right. All of the parts kind of connect with each other that creates more emphasis. What are are you hearing this from your members? Is it just general dialogue? Is it stuff you're seeing on new content on the internet? All of the above? Very
much all of the above.
Okay.
And of course, we talk a lot about the changing role and remit of the travel manager over the last couple of years. And sustainability, if it wasn't a large part of the remit, has come in, especially as far as the reporting of the impact of travel and meetings. ITM's buyer members, as you know, Paul, range from the multinational globals, the Goliaths, all the way through to medium and small businesses. And some businesses have a very well-developed environmental and sustainability function.
Yeah.
Others, you have to pick it up within the functional procurement areas and categories. So our buyers have, through all of those different size types, if you like, been more involved with sustainability than ever. And as we surveyed our members throughout the period, it's only become an increased priority with every passing month. So to your point, we've created content around it, as everybody needs to, but it's really been a key area where we need to help people benchmark and share best practice, because sustainability is one of those areas where it's a non-competing sport.
Yes.
Right? Everybody needs to do well and do better.
Yes.
And so travel managers are working very hard on getting sight of it and working hard on the initiatives to address it.
How, because as an association, you have members who are suppliers and buyers, and you say it's a non-compete sport, we can all work together. There is a fundamental challenge, which is it's not enough for us to just offset, it's not enough for us just to have the data to make the right choices. It feels like there's a lot of companies out there saying, the first port of call is we have to reduce the amount of travel. Yeah. How difficult is that conversation within your membership?
Well, I think it was a lot more difficult 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think we know of many companies that we work with who were really struggling to hit their targets as far as reducing travel prior to the pandemic. And we'll come back to that doing less harm notion that you touched on.
Yeah.
But the pandemic has, sadly or correctly, given us alternatives to travel. So the same organisations that were really struggling to reduce their impact prior to the pandemic do now have some tools. And so we are finding that that they have new targets. The other thing that's changed, Paul, is that there's no baseline anymore.
No.
Because we've got nothing to compare to anymore. We can't even talk about 2019. We were doing that 6-9 months ago, weren't we? And saying that's a base we can use. I don't think the base applies anymore.
No.
It's a whole new world, and you may as well start from scratch. So some companies find that the setting of targets and a baseline is a difficulty that makes it hard to make progress. And I think what increasingly our buyer and supplier members are saying is no excuses. Let's not have the excuse of the baseline's a bit tricky. Let's just try and make the strides we can. And I think if there's an undercurrent to what we're hearing, what we're looking for, it's always done is better than perfect. So, we think that target setting, getting visibility is critical, but it's just part of the equation. It's about what you're doing.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the baseline, because in many ways, if you were a company that went through the last 18 months and you managed to achieve your revenues without travel, your baseline is zero, isn't it? In a way. And I think prior to the pandemic, one of the challenges was to go from 100% to 95% seemed blooming hard to do.
Yeah.
Now to go from 0 to 50%, actually that seems okay. And then you've saved 50% of your emissions and cost.
Yes.
But of course, you can only make those judgments once you understand what the value of travel is to the business. So that's the kind of start point. And then hopefully you've mitigated some of the travel.
Absolutely.
And then you get into that measurement and switching suppliers and those sorts of components, don't you?
Absolutely. And that point you make about the value of meeting has never been more in focus than it is right now.
Yeah.
And I think what we really would advise travel buyers and managers to do right now is actually, when it comes to sustainability, don't lose sight of the value of meeting in person. So, we weren't doing it for a while, but there's a cost of that too.
Yes.
So, our more forward-thinking travel buyers and managers out there are becoming consultants to their business in why they meet. And that in itself makes you a pretty valuable and important person in the business.
It's a wonderful opportunity, isn't it, to get some higher connection within your business. And also, I don't know how hard it is for the travel manager to take that really independent position where they say, do you know what, I'm going to challenge myself and challenge our company on the amount of travel that we do.
Sure.
It's quite a difficult thing. I don't know whether it's difficult. I don't know whether you've heard that or not.
It is, and I think what we've heard is that early on in the crisis, everyone was meeting virtually, so some of our travel buyers found that doors were opened internally because meetings were virtual. Everyone was a little bit more attainable.
Yes.
Didn't have to go through the various stages you might have to get to meet a senior stakeholder before. I think now it's becoming more difficult again as people start to work in shapes and styles that are a bit like the way we used to.
Yeah.
But Paul, I think one of the most frightening things I heard in the last 6 months was, in our survey, we asked what proportion of buyers knew how much of the company's emissions were related to traveller meetings. 75% said they could not even guess.
Wow.
75%. So we think that that's something that this is not just the responsibility of the buyer, the travel buyer. They need help from their companies to get their arms around this.
Yeah.
But before we used to talk about addressable spend, because if we can see spend, we can manage it. I think we need to look at addressable environmental impact too. And so I think our buyers are busy working with their stakeholders and sustainability champions in their business to understand what the real size of this stuff is.
Okay. The measurement piece is interesting as well, because you alluded to this earlier. What your travel landscape and what it used to be is shifting.
Yes.
We had Catherine McGavock from GBT on earlier saying, about the commutes become business travel. That's a piece that wasn't in your corporate responsibility of emissions. That's now is your responsibility. So it's tough. It's a shifting landscape, isn't it?
It is. I've always thought, travel really in the end is the art, if you want to call it that, of putting your people in the right place to do the best work.
Yes.
And that can be a commute, it can be a transatlantic flight. It's all part of the same thing, isn't it? You're moving your brain power around for the benefit of the business.
Yeah. So if 75% were unaware of what their carbon contribution was, the overall company emissions, your advice to travel managers for the next 12 months, understand it, measure it, that's just simple as that?
Absolutely, understand it, measure it. And I think with the caveat that some of this stuff you're not going to get down to the last percentage of accuracy.
Yes.
But always with sustainability, we must never let the challenges and difficulty of measuring, because we know some parts of the travel ecosystem are harder to measure than others.
Yes.
The accommodation sector has traditionally found it a little bit more difficult than others for very understandable reasons. But you've got to get your hands around it somehow. And then you get into that discussion of, are we trying to do good, which means offset, or are we trying to do less harm, which means do less or do it differently?
Yes.
And I think that those are equally important. And that speaks to our point at the very beginning about the demographics of the traveller. I wonder, Paul, I'm going to say something a bit controversial now.
We like that.
Some travellers in the past, the naughty scamps, used to try and look for an upgrade, didn't they, when they were traveling?
Yes.
I wonder if the younger traveler of the future may be looking for a reason to downgrade, because in certain travel modes in our ecosystem, there's proven to be less sustainability impact. So imagine they wouldn't save the company money before by sitting in a different seat, but they might want to spend the planet less by sitting in a different seat.
I think you're absolutely right. I agree with your controversy if it is, but that downgrading of class, the impact there is on well-being, and you've got to get the balance right.
Yes.
But I agree with you. I think we might well see that. So this will be a focus, presumably, of ITMs over the next certainly 12 months, couple of years. Has to be
huge focus. I mean, it's been very, very high on our agenda for at least the last 5 or 6 years. But now every major event and conference we do, it's one of the 3 pillars of those events. So we have conference next spring where it will be a huge part. We've got our sustainability summit, which is dedicated to it on the 21st of October.
I saw that,
So that'll be in person.
Okay, Scott, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us a little bit of an insight into the membership and just how important this topic is and how it's going to shape our sector. I really appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Paul.